Okay, so we have this videos module and it's been living out in the wild for a little bit. And now we decide that we want to make an update and add a couple features maybe, and we need some new fields to support the update that we want to do, to support these features. So what we're going to do is create a migration after the fact. Aside from our initial setup migrations, we're going to create a new migration to add these fields and assign them to the stream that we want. So to do that, we're going to use the make migration command just like we normally would in Laravel. So we're going to use PHP Artisan, make migration. We're going to tell it the add-on that we want to use, or put it in. And then we are going to designate a fields migration. And this is going to stub the migration a little bit differently. It's the same migration class. It's the Streams Platform Migration, but it's just stubbed out a little bit differently. That's best used for creating fields. We forgot the name. Create, let's add a URL field type, or a URL field. And maybe this will just link off to a resource or something like that for the video. Okay, and if we go and take a look at that add-on, migrations, you can see that's created this field, or the field migration here. And this is very similar to the first one, and so you could easily name this create new fields or create version 2 fields and define more fields in here, but instead I'm just going to define 1. Okay, and now what we can also do is I can either create a new migration to assign this, which is kind of nice, but I can also define the stream and assignments here. And since the method is kind of the same, the arguments are the same, I could easily, you can see stream is defined here. I could easily define it here and do everything in this migration. And what it'll do is it'll see that the stream exists, skip it. It'll migrate the fields, and then it'll migrate the assignments that I can put down here. But for now, I'm just going to make 2 migrations just to show you the 2 different commands. So we'll keep this as is, and then we're going to create a new one, and I'm going to call this one assign URL field. And again, this could easily all be in one migration. I'm just showing you 2 here for the sake of showing you the stream migration. And we're going to assign this to videos. So if we hop back over here, we see the assign URL field, and this has the videos stream, and we already made this back here in this migration. So what it's going to do, it's not going to create or update or do anything with this stream. What it's going to do is use this stream for the assignments. And if we had fields defined in here, we could take this and copy and paste it into this one and just do away with that other migration, but it uses this stream for the assignments. So what we're going to do is add our URL, and it's not going to be required or anything like that. So let's run this and see what happens. We can easily do migrate, refresh, and designate the add-on like we normally do, but another good one to know is PHP Artisan migrate, and we won't refresh. I'm sorry, we don't want to refresh, we just want to migrate. So let's just do all add-ons. There we are. Okay, and let's go take a look at our add-on real quick. Pop in here, let's edit one of these. Okay. Let's see here, series, and here we have our URL field. And this is just default form. I don't think we have any kind of sections or anything. If you reload this and you don't see it, maybe you have sections for your form defined and you're not including this field. So just something to keep in mind as you update stuff. Now all you need to do is define the translation keys for the new field. And to do that, we can come over here, language, field, and there we go. just like that. So now you can, for instance, make like a new branch in your repository. You can add the logic that you need. You can add these migrations to support the new features, and then when people update, all they have to do is run that migrate all add-ons, and after they've brought in your new version, they'll run all the migrations and you'll get the supported features. Your code base will already be set in place to accommodate those new fields, and you'll be good to go. There's one other way to migrate some things. Let's say that maybe you don't want to use these shorthand migrations. Maybe there's a little bit more logic involved in this migration that you want to do. So another way you can do this is let's make a new migration. Make migration, create something else, add-on equals videos, and we're not going to define whether it's a field or a stream migration at all. And we hop back over here, and you'll see that this one looks a lot like a normal Laravel migration. And if we look at what it's extending the same migration that all the others do. And if we view that one, it just extends the Laravel migration again. So it's nearly identical. There's just a little bit of extra logic built into it to do some cool stuff. These are very helpful. So the fields method returns an instance of the fields repository, streams repository, and assignments repository respectively. So one thing to note here is that you won't get the guessing. So the only thing that will be guessed is the namespace. So the slug and everything has to be defined just like the database requests it. So the slug has to be defined here. The type has to be defined here. And if you do like a name or anything, then you can translate that like this. And those you can leave empty, but a lot of times when you're migrating, you'll probably want to define something when you're doing it this way. So name would be English name, and if you had other languages that you want to specify here, you can just do this. So this is a good way to do it if you have more logic involved in what you're creating. And what will happen is this will, just like a normal repository or create method on a model, this will return the field instance. So down here, what you can do is, for example, field, you can just pass the field object. So you're creating, you're creating the assignment with the field, and let's say you get the stream, and let's define that. Oops. This streams, and you can do, for instance, find by slug and namespace. So let's see, slug would be videos and namespace would be videos. So you could do something like that and do kind of the exact same thing, but you can inject a little bit more logic. It just depends. This is helpful a lot of times when you're creating, when you're adding fields outside of an add-on. So if you just create this migration, if we create something like this, but we don't designate a migration or an add-on to put it in, it's going to put it in the default database migration. And what you can do here is add fields to an add-on, maybe in core or whatever, and these migrations in the database folder are ran during an installation of Pyro. They're going to be ran last, so they can be helpful for kind of scaffolding up like a typical setup or something like that. We use something like this to set up common snippets and common variables that we always use, and set up some automatic page types and things like that. So we keep them here so that we don't have to store them in core, and we can just run them every time we install, and they get ran automatically. So that's very cool. Just keep in mind that you're working directly with the model in the repository here, so you have to define things like namespace, slug, the stream and everything like that. You have to define those manually, and you can find information on that in the database structure. because again, you're working directly with the model, and you can also find some information in the documentation. So that's how you would work with migrations after the fact. A very common question. I hope that it makes sense, and leave any comments or questions in the comment section below.